Right, so today's talk is called Interactive Financial Charting using Cufflinks. A bit about myself. I'm a product manager at Thomson Reuters. I've been in financial services for around 12 years. I'm really passionate about Python. Data is not my daily job, but that's something I really love. I'm part of the Python for Quant Finance. The page says that I'm a co-organizer, but Yves takes all the credit. I just really enjoy the networking and learning what people do with Python and finance. And I'm the creator of Cufflinks, which is one of the things that we're going to talk about today, right? So two things first. So what is Cufflinks? So Cufflinks, as the thing says, is a library that binds Plotly and Pandas, right? It's trying to make it easier to interact with both of them. It's really optimized for financial workflows, mainly because it's all the workflows that I use it for. It could be like a lot for different things, but it's just really optimized for finance. I've been dealing with a lot of finance people. I know what they're doing. I know how they just move from Excel to VBA to some other languages, and it's really optimized for them. It is meant to be an interactive library. It is for you to play around with data, explore with data, try to get different answers. It is not so much for dashboards or something like that, just for you to interact with it. I mean, Plotly itself has a great API that you can use for that. This is just more for an interactive approach. Right? And it's completely open source, right? It is not attached to any market data vendor. It is completely an open source. You can use it for whatever you want. In this specific case, I'll be using the Eikon from Thomson Reuters data proxy to get all my data. I mean, you could use Yahoo or anything else, but if you want to get like really serious data, estimates, fundamentals, you may require a better source of data. And in this case, I'll be using what we call the Eikon proxy, right? This allows me to get data from Thomson Reuters, really like premium data in a very easy manner, directly into Python. That is everything delivered in Pandas data frames, so it's absolutely ready to be used on any form. So it's a really cool library. I mean, I'll go through some examples, right? Right, so about this talk, just for me to set some expectations of how we're going to do this, how many of you are here really in finance? Right, and how many of you use Python or R or any other language for your daily stuff? Okay, cool, right. So the way that I'm going to just go through this talk is I'm going to go through some stories, some real life examples, to see how would you be using in finance a bit of charting, plotting, or something else. It is not a finance talk. It is not to go into the details of those ones. I have no opinion whatsoever. What I'm going to show is just to go through some examples and stories, just for you to see the syntax, the examples, the outputs, the parameters that I'm using. It is not a full tutorial. You can always access this here. So I'm going to split it into parts. First, I'm going to go through those examples, and then I'll try to do, if time permits, a live demo of a bit more advanced financial charting and technical analysis. Cool, so let's start with some examples. Import first. So what I will always be using, Cufflinks, which is the charting library, Pandas to do my data manipulation, and Eikon to get my data source. Right? So that's everything that I'll be using throughout this talk. Right? I'm going to skip this one. This is to set up the Eikon library itself to Python so you can start getting your data into a data frame. Right, so let's start with the first example to understand a bit more what actually Cufflinks is. Right? So let's pretend that I have some really simple example. I'll try to analyze 2 years of Microsoft data. So the first thing that I can do is just get my time series, get Microsoft. I'm going to get closing prices, 2 years of data, so just from this date until this date. And as I can see, everything's readily available in a data frame that I can start using, right? So all the data that comes from the Eikon proxy, I can start using as a Pandas data frame and start using on any thing that I may want to use, right? So I have the data frame. Thing that I want to do after is I want to plot it, right? So basically, Cufflinks is summarized on this slide, right? It's trying to get a data frame and trying to plot it in an interactive form, and that's all you may need to know, right? Just your data frame.iplot, right? So if I go to my data frame, Microsoft.iplot, I can see my chart, 2-year chart for Microsoft on the fly, right? So that's the very easy approach, one-line approach, right? What's the cool part of it is that you can start manipulating this on the fly. One-line approach, you don't need to start having to figure out if it is a layout, a data, the tracers, or something else. You can start passing parameters, and it will do it just straight away, right? So I may want to add a title for Microsoft. You can choose, it comes with around 7 or 8 different themes, but you can just customize it and add as many as you want. So theme is just a combination of colors and fonts and everything else. So I want to use one that is called ggplot and have a width of the line 3 pixels, right? So you can just get it in there. Right? Again, it's just optimized for finance, so it has a lot of pre-made tools for finance. In this case, I'm just adding a simple regression or a best fitted line just to understand better the data that I'm looking at. So I can just do this by just saying I want to get a best fit equals true, and it just shows me the line with the data that I want to get, right? Cool, so that is just a very simple starting point, right? Now, annotations and markers. We know that in finance it's extremely important to be able to annotate your charts, right? Everybody can access the same data, everybody can see the same chart. It's all about your interpretation, it's all about your data, your annotations, your trends you're adding to all these charts, right? So Cufflinks comes with a very easy way to do this, in which basically, if you have any annotations, it's just a dictionary of dates and events. So you just have to pass for a given date, this event on a text form, and it will annotate it for you. For example, let's say that we want to add earnings events to our Microsoft charts that we have. Or we want to understand if it has something to do with the price or the price changes, right? So I can do a very simple dictionary saying for this date, I want to add a given string. As we have seen from other speakers, you can, like Plotly Sales support some HTML tags, so I can just add them in here. So I just add that annotation, and Cufflinks automatically is going to, you don't have to set your y-axis or anything else. It automatically goes and looks for the right point on the chart to let it out. You can just add some idle parameters, and I want to get a horizontal text instead of a vertical one. And it's a pretty easy thing. Single line, and I can just add my annotation to my chart. Right? Okay, let's start getting a bit more into annotations and markers. Let's say that we want to perhaps understand if dividend payments have affected the price of, like the changes of price, or I just want to overlay this information over the chart. Right? So I can just go here and start getting my data. I mean, the proxy itself, if I just open this, has a very cool way to look for, if I go see for dividends, right? I can see all the different fields that I can use. I can see the parameters that I can add to any of them. And it just shows a string at the bottom that I can just copy from here and use within my data calls. Right? So it's an extremely easy way to use it. I just copy the text, and that's what I need to use to have a given dividend for a specific financial year. Right? So it's pretty easy to use. Right? So going back to my presentation, I'm just going to use these 3 different fields. We want to get net and gross adjusted dividends, right? For starting from May 15, which is the day in which our pricing chart started. So if I use that, I get a use a data call, and I can see all my dividends coming back for these different dates, right? So I just want to overlay that. I can just want to set a nice way to display this when I hover over the markers, right? So I can just add these merging figures that Cufflinks can just allows you to merge all the figures that you may want to get, and I can start seeing here all my different dividends over the pricing data, right? And everything, any other information. You can also add news headlines, news stories, or anything else that you may want to overlay over this pricing time series, right? Performance comparisons. This is a pretty common workflow to start comparing multiple time series that you may want to see performance. So let's just go through an example to see what we can do. So let's say that we want to see, we already been seeing Microsoft for a couple of data frames. Let's see if Microsoft has outperformed. Even though it has a pretty cool chart, it seems that it's just really uptrending chart in here. We want to see if it has outperformed its main index, the SPX index, right? So we can just get both at the same time and retrieve all the data. We can see that the data frame itself comes in a shape that is ready to be utilized. In this case, I have all my times here, all my securities on the columns, so I can start using it straight away. So I'm Microsoft and my index. And again, it is a simple call. I'm going to normalize it I'm going to normalize it as of the starting date. I can do it as of any other date. But let's say this is when we start playing around with the different forms of charts that Cufflinks comes with, right? So I have 2 time series. I want to say I want to do a kind that is a spread between the 2. I'm just going to add a title and just hide my my grid, right? So automatically shows the performance of the 2 stocks compared one to another and a spread. So you can just look it out, right? So again, the main point here is just that we can start playing around with these parameters, right? Let's do some other kind of a bit more, like different kind of charts, right? Example, let's try to go and look at growth estimate changes, right? So basically what we want to do is that we want to retrieve estimates for multiple fundamental indicators, let's say revenue, EPS, or anything else. We want to see the estimate figures for the next years, and we want to see how have they changed year on year, right? We really want to see how are those estimates changing every single year, right? So you could do this by downloading all the different estimates, do it that yourself. The API comes with a pretty cool thing that you can send these calculations to the backend, so everything is done for you. Perhaps this is a very easy example, but if you want to do this across thousands of securities, or you want to do it across a group of peers or anything else, it becomes a very intensive calculation that you may not want to download 1 gig of data. You can just do it everything on the backend and just get all the results, right? So basically, we just need to generate these strings. So if it is current year, it is going to be my estimate of next year compared to my actual values. For any year going forward, I want to get the estimates for the year 2 versus the one of year 1, for example. So just a quick way, we're going to generate all the strings, to generate all the fields. We want to see actual values versus mean values, and estimate values. We're just going to rename the columns just for ease of use. And basically, let's start using this so we can just start charting these items, right? Let's say we want to get a 4-year, year-on-year estimate of how it has changed for Amazon, right? We want to see for EPS and revenue, how has an analyst estimated like these are going to change in the coming years, right? So we just use that, say like I want to get estimates for Amazon, for EPS and revenue for the next 4 years. And I can see everything comes back in this data frame. So this is my percent change, which was calculated on the backend for each of these figures. So we can see for year 1, we expect to have a 36% increase in earnings per share. And then from year 1 to 271 and so on, right? So we can chart this, again, looking at the syntax here. I want to do just a bar chart, so I just change my syntax. A bar chart, it supports any color lover kind of scale, so I can just set a color scale and have it in here and change my theme, right? So I want to get all the estimate changes for Amazon, and I can see how this looks, right? So this is just a bar chart with multiple values in here. For some reason, the scaling of the charts is not coming as I wanted because all the legends are on the right-hand side. But okay, so we want to understand, is this a good or bad set of estimates for Amazon? We may want to compare this to the peer group. So let's say we want to get all the peers of Amazon and make a comparison. Right? So I can just get, again, screen on the back end in a dynamic form, all the peers of Amazon, including Amazon, and get all the company market cap. So I can see all the ones that match that, all the peers of Amazon. And I just want to sort, let's say, the top 10 by market cap. Again, I'm going to get all the estimates for those ones, and I can see all the different years. I can see the layout of the data frame has changed for a better use. And I can start charting this one. So again, I'm just have my bar with a color scale. Same title, just adding my y-axis, right? Again, single line approach to chart all this data, okay? And I can see here, yes, that there's a trend on all these peers on the way of the estimates are being done. We can see some lower estimates for Facebook. We can see Google being the only one that has a negative one and so on, right? Just like, it's a very easy way to chart and analyze these figures, right? Another example, a bit more intense screening. Let's say that we want to analyze across 1,000 stocks. We're looking for those that have a market cap between 5 billion and 20 billion US dollars, and with an analyst revision of greater than 80. So like more than 80% of their analyst recommendations are a buy for these ones. So again, you can see this presentation after. You can see how to do all the screening parameters. But this is a very powerful thing. I mean, you can screen across every single existing data point that exists in the Thomson Reuters backend to analyze and do dynamic searches to retrieve these values, right? So that means that every time you retrieve the data, those values can change because are the ones that match these specific criteria, right? So I set my universe, I set my set of fields, and I just get it on this single call, right? So I can start seeing all these growth companies. I want to get the 50 of them. I want to get the sector to understand the sectors. and analyze it on a given firm. So let's just see. We have a 52-week price percent change, so we have a 1-year percent change, the company market cap, the revenue, and the analyst revisions, right? So what is the best way in which we can visualize this data, right? This large amount of data, right? So basically, we can just, so I want to get this in a bubble chart, right? So I can start seeing here all my different stocks that I have, which the size is automatically done with the market cap. So I can just define here what is it that I want to use for size, automatically scales, and I can start seeing all these values, right? Revenue versus 52-week percent change. Do I want to add another dimension? I just add another axis, right? Just pass another axis, the same syntax, just add another axis, and I start getting a pretty cool 3D chart for stocks, right? Pretty easy way to use these ones. Analyst recommendations, they start like getting into a bit of that. So let's start saying, given Brexit and all the recent events, what do analysts think of the FTSE, the main equity index in the UK these days? So let's start seeing some of these examples. We're going to get for the entire FTSE the number of buy, hold, and sell recommendations that we have. We're just going to get it in a way that is the percent of those ones. So let's say, for example, in this case, 43% holds for this specific company. So we just do that across all companies, and we can chart all of them. So see, like we can get a bar that we did before. We just do a horizontal bar. So just a matter of changing the type of chart, and it's going to flip the chart. We're going to stack this, so we want to get it everything on a stack of charts, stack of bars within every single line. Set a bit of margin, so we move it a bit to the left, so we fit all the values. You can set the dimension that you want directly from the chart, and I can just pass any array of colors that I may want to use for this, right? So again, it's very simple from data frame to chart, single call, right? Going to 101 stocks on the FTSE perhaps is not the best way to do it in this form. We may want to group it, for example. So if we, let's say we're going to add the sectors in this one. So by adding sectors, I can see that also Cufflinks understands Pandas group values. So if you do any group by, so I want to group by any given dimension, automatically you can chart this one as well, and it understands that it needs to grab it, right? So we can see here that energy is the one that has the highest number of buy recommendations, whereas financials is the one that has the lowest, well, it's on the lower side, right, on the FTSE, right? Let's look at the last example. Let's look at other type of charts. So again, what I'm trying to show is the different type of charts that you can use in these financial workflows. Let's look at some returns, for example. Let's see let's look at the first 100 days for each of the last 5 US presidents and see how the daily returns have changed in the main US index, right? Just to see a bit of volatility distribution within those first days, right? So we want to get, this is the days in which each of them took possession. We're just going to get the SPX for 100 days for each of these values, just the closing figures. And we're going to chart these values, right? So we can see here a histogram with all the different values. Again, I cannot show the legends on the right-hand side. You can see the red one is Barack Obama, right? So you can see the wide distributions that it has on daily returns for the first 100 days. Perhaps that is not the best way to analyze it. So again, like going just to the parameters, I can just say I want to get a kind of histogram, a given color scale, and my title. It's everything that I need to add just to my data frame to get this kind of figures, right? Perhaps is it not as easy for me to see it on a single image, on a single chart? I'd rather see it multiple ones. You can just do it by saying I want to get on a subplot form equals true. What it's going to do is going to strip all these figures. Doesn't matter what it is, bar charts, histograms, anything else, and show me a list of all the different charts, right? So here we can see compare and I'm just normalizing the axis, so I'm seeing exactly the same data. So this is Barack Obama on this side. We have Bill Clinton here, Trump on that one, on the different distributions, right? You want to flip it and do it on a normalized form? This is how we can do it, yeah. Cool, so that is just to give you an idea of the things that you can do using Cufflinks for charting. Now I want to show you some quick example of a bit more advanced what we call a quant figure. Because right now what we have been doing is all interactive forming, which you just start like adding all the parameters to iPlot and plotting these ones. Sometimes when you want to do like some more in-depth analysis of a chart and want to start adding figures and studies and so on, it is not so good to have it everything on a single call. You may want to start adding analysis, remove them, and just analyze those ones. So that'll be the persistence. So just going to show you, let's see if I can just do it quickly here, what we call a quant figure. So a quant figure is a new object within the Cufflinks library that is going to have persistence on all the items that you use, right? So this is better for financial charting, okay? So it has the same principles as Cufflinks. It's data vendor agnostic, so you will not find any get symbols or anything else. So let's use some examples. Let's just gonna get the USD FX rates, VIX, SPX, and Apple for some examples, right? So let's start looking at this. I'm just going to create a quant figure for the USD, GBP. And if I plot it here, I can see straight away all the data. This is, again, now we're talking finance, having like candle charts, pretty cool ones that you can use. This is 5 years of weekly data for the cable. This is how a quant figure looks like, right? So it just creates a dictionary that is a bit more explanatory in terms of finance terms, of the studies you have, trend lines, annotations, themes, up colors, down colors. So it's more configured towards finance, that when you plot this one will be interpreted into a plotly figure, but it's just a bit more geared towards finance, and you can just change any of these values and just keep plotting. But still allows you to have all the interactivity of Cufflinks. So you can still pass and override on the fly any parameters if you want to test things. So let's say I have my figure that I saw on top, but let's say I just want to change the theme and my up and down colors on the fly. I can just do it by passing those values, and it's going to be on the fly, but the persistence of that figure is kept, so I can still see my original item in here, right? Range selector is a pretty cool recent thing. I don't know if you're familiar with it on Plotly, but you can add, let's say that I have 5 years of weekly data right now. If we see these values, it's a pretty big data set. So if you want to start slicing this one, you can use a range selector that it understands any common language. If I'm going to say 3 years, year, month, week, minutes, or anything else, you can just start doing those ones. And what this is going to allow us to do is to have these multiple ways of slicing data to see subsections of that content, right? Now, this is the only thing that you will see in my presentation that has a monospace one. I don't know whether there's always an eagerness for financial charts to have monospace fonts, given that there are so many great fonts out there. But that you can use those ones, right? So let's see what else you can do. Again, as we said, one of the main things on financial workflows is to add annotations to play around with the data. The quant figure allows you to add annotations, trend lines, boxes in a pretty easy manner. So let's say, for example, that we want to add, we're seeing this is the cable or the USD GBP one. We want to start adding annotations, right? We know that two important events on this chart is Brexit and the flash crash that happened in October. So we can start adding, again, same premise as before, just the actual date and the values we want to have. We can start adding a support line. We can see here that is crossed. So this is Brexit. This is the flash crash. Again, it took me just one line to start adding these annotations. Start skipping persistence so I can keep playing around with it, right? So I can see other important points in here. Another one that we're trying to see if it's going to break this resistance that we have in here in these recent days. So we can just add it here just to the end. So as I want to add a support line just that goes from the date that I'm passing, very easy one, till the end, right? Some other quick examples. You can start adding boxes, passing coordinates. So I want to add an annotation. I want to see if it's going to break this one. So use better boxes with any configuration you may want to have. Right? We can start adding more like support and resistance levels at once. So we can set a channel if it's going to break it or not. We can add a slide range selector if you want to just move it around just by saying range slider equals true. So again, single line approach, but keeps persistence of the object you have. Let's move quickly to SPX. So we can just add, again, my SPX with the range selector. And I can start adding studies, right? So if I go here to my quant indicator, I can see all my different studies. I can start adding to each of them and passing values. So I want to start adding, let's say, RSI, which I can see at the bottom. I can start adding annotations, start to indicate that this is a head and shoulders pattern, for example. We can see here some trend line that you can add on a single line. and how it breaks. So it's pretty cool, and start to is like adding all these annotations, right? And again, you can see the annotations for each of them. So you can see all the train lines that I have. So you can see here my train lines that I have, the ones that I have annotated. So it's pretty easy to change any of them, right? A bit more advanced, technical indicators. We can start having, I'm rushing now because I'm being told that I only have 3 minutes, so I'm just going to go rushing. So you can start adding all these different technical indicators. What is cool on this one is that it's going to start sizing without you having to change any dimensions. Here I have my, for example, look at this when I'm starting to add my simple moving averages. I can just say all of these ones, see them at once. I can overlay them, right? I can start adding my volume at the bottom. All my volume, those ones. I can start adding on these ones some Bollinger Bands, so I can just add field values or not. Right? Starting RSI on this one, so I can see it just everything at once. I can play around with the way I want this sizing to happen. If I want to have specific sizing and change it again on the fly, I can always trial things. If I want to change the spacing in between each of the panels to be 15% of the whole chart, I can always do it. I can see that it has a greater size. Actually, you can see it on a different thing better, right? Right. So you can see the sizing that it changes. And here you can see multiple studies within the same value that you can always analyze. Again, everything single line approach, and you can just change the data and just reutilize your studies, right? So basically, I think that's most of the things that I wanted to show. I think I rushed a lot, but I was on the dot. So if there are any questions about it?
Hi, thank you for your presentation. It was very, very interesting. So we have 2 questions. One is, does this scale to large amounts of data? And the other question is this available open source?
Yeah, so this is available open source. So it's 2 parts of that, right? Is the one that is the Cufflinks part. Yeah, it's open source. It is on the slide on the first one. So if you go to, it's on GitHub. So you just look for Cufflinks. I think I was pretty proud of the stars as well this morning. But Cufflinks, yes. I mean, it's completely based on Plotly, scales on the same form. You can chart a lot of things at once. I've done like surfaces with options with thousands of options and has no issue with it. The Eikon side, the one to get data, is not open source. That is just for Thomson Reuters side, but it's completely decoupled, right? So you can change, if you have any other data vendor, you can use it, and yes, it scales in a pretty cool manner. It's more constrained about what you're using, because the most common framework is to use it on a Jupyter notebook, and sometimes you're constrained to the amount of data on the browser itself, but apart from that, it's cool.
Jorge, thank you. Do you have any idea how widespread the Cufflinks library is in use? I mean, this is, for me, it's kind of like sliced bread. Plotly is wonderful, Pandas is wonderful, the combination is even more. So how widespread in use is it actually?
I mean, it has, I mean, I have a lot of people asking on the forums. I don't have enough time to answer all of them. On open source, I mean, if anyone wants to contribute, more than happy. I've had people just helping out. But I've heard like it's widely used. I mean, the guys from Plotly, I really appreciate it. They're just trying to spread the word a lot. You see it in most of the examples that they have on the Plotly page as well. They're Cufflinks examples, so it's quite cool. Yeah, good. All right, thank you very much.